Well, good evening. Welcome to the Institute of Quarrying Scottish Branch Technical Evening. It's a good turnout tonight, so thank you all for coming tonight. I've also got our face-to-face meetings, face-to-face here tonight, and Saturday meetings at Breedon, Derby Quarry, Leeds Lock Hills, and AI Glen Sanders. So hopefully it's working tight after last month. There's some technical issues, but hopefully the guys are online tonight, okay? So tonight we have a presentation by Jim Ixer, the Drone Pilot Academy, who will present an overview on flying a drone in quarries and the regulatory requirements. So I've just finished a course with Jim and the Tarmac technical team on the E2 CFC course, which was a really enjoyable day. So I enjoyed it, Jim. And before we start, I'll tell you a bit about Jim's history. He's the managing director of the Drone Pilot Academy, the Civil Aviation Authority accredited training provider that he set up himself. Prior to that, he had a 17-year career flying human helicopters for the White Air Force. He's seen active service in Bosnia, Iraq, Kosovo, Afghanistan, as well as various command tours. So when Jim initially left the RAF, his drone company was actively involved in mapping numerous quarries throughout the UK and here he is today. So same technology, slightly smaller. Jim, it's over to you.
Hopefully less risk. Good evening, ladies and gents. As I've just been introduced, Jim Ixer from the Drone Pilot Academy. Thank you ever so much for asking me to come along today and do this presentation. So, what are we going to talk about today then? So, I'll give you a quick, there's been a brief introduction. I'll do an introduction of myself and how I got into the drone industry and what I did at the outset. I'll talk to you about the licensing and regulations that are out there. We'll touch on drone use in quarries. I know a lot of you have seen the drones in your quarries, but the outputs and the deliverables that you're getting from your drones. Had a few questions before about the we call it QuinJack, the abbreviation. I've got it right, QNJAC, QuinJack, and about rogue drone flying in quarries as well. So I'll give you the lowdown. Following the regulations brief, you will have a bit more of an understanding of what you can't do with these rogue operators in quarries, which seems to be a topic of interest. And then what next? Where are the regulations going? So those are, can I just see it, show of hands, those that are qualified already? People, yeah, where we're going with the regulations as well. So a few changes coming up. It won't affect you guys, just to reassure you at this stage, but there are some changes afoot. You can ask questions throughout, that's fine, just let me know and I'll try and answer them. If not, I'll get back to you at a later date if it's a technical question that I can't answer. I will set my stall out now. As you know, I've got an aviation background. I'm not a surveyor by trade. Ben, who was going to come up with me, his wife is on short finals to giving birth, so he didn't fancy the Swindon dash midway through this brief to get back. So it's just me today. So I always wanted to fly. I did my pilot training when I was at university. I was on the University Air Squadron. I did the initial part of training and then I joined the Air Force as soon as I could. I just wanted to be in a cockpit. So I joined in 1997 and I did 17 years. Had a fantastic time, loved every minute of it. But unfortunately, I was getting promoted, doing less time in the cockpit, more desk jobs. I've got a young family, doing a lot of tours away, as you heard there. So I decided I'd have my fun. It was time to give something back to the family. I left the Air Force. Have we got any ex-veterans? Any veterans here? Any ex-military? So I went on a resettlement course where they teach you to be a civilian in 2 days. It's a bit like when Morgan Freeman leaves The Shawshank Redemption, you know, that shock of capture there. I was in there was a couple of lads talking about flying drones at weekend. And I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. I had a finance background. I thought I was going to end up in finance. So I think in the first break, I'd ordered my first drone, which was a DJI Phantom 2. That was on its way from China. 2 weeks later, it was on its way back because I parked it in the side of my house. There was a fault with it. I went online and did the usual Google searches to see what was wrong with it. And I realised that you needed a commercial operator's license, in effect, in order to fly drones. So I booked myself on this course. The bit I needed to know was how you fly them, because it's completely different to a helicopter. It's thumbs that fly the drone. I went on this course in Liverpool city centre and there was no flying whatsoever. It was just death by PowerPoint, so I was a bit disappointed. When I left, I got straight in touch with the CA and said, I want to start my own academy. And quite rightly, in hindsight, they said, you can't, you need a year of experience in industry, so off you go and come back to us in a year's time. So that's what I did. self-employed, straight out of the Air Force, did loads of networking, chatting to people like house builders, and they said, right, you need, you know, we've heard about these volumetric surveys and everything that you can do. Can you do that for us? And I said, yes, we can. And they went, right, come and do a demo. The Phantom that I had didn't do it. So I plumbed for an EB, which is a fixed one. I'll show you a picture in a bit, but it's a lightweight. It weighs less than 900 grams. It's foam, but it cost me 20 grand. So I stuck my neck on the line. And then that box sat in the garage for 6 months. My wife saying, what's happening? Where are all these demos that the house builders want? Nothing came, but there was a company, and I don't know how much of the industry you know, but back in 2014, there was a company called Redbird that did the analytics on quarries. Yeah, a few of you know that company. They saw, luckily, the EB that I bought, they promoted on the website, the UK operators, people that own them. They got in touch and said, can you do a demo at a quarry? The French, what's your day rate? I said something like £800. And they went, no, French, it's €400. And I went, we're not in France, we're in the UK, it's 800. So I didn't get the job. We went to someone else. The feedback I got, because eventually I did get the job, it went terrible with this other company. They didn't use the drone that they wanted. They didn't take an ED, they took something else. I went back and there was a guy there from, basically Redbird were doing the analysis for Caterpillar for their managed services. So there was a guy called Phil Lewis, you might know, at the time. He was there and said, why didn't you do it first time? And it was an argument over price, effectively, which was really hard because it was sat there doing nothing, all that money. And then Phil said to Redbird, we need to use these guys every time because when they came, it all worked, they're really efficient. So we didn't do any of the processing, we just did the flying and sent the photos. Other people did the ground control points, putting the checkerboards in. So literally and we were really lucky, you know, first year of a business to get that gig and go around quarries, just doing, you know, quarries every other week for them. So we were lucky. So after, and that lasted a bit longer than a year, but after a year, I went back to the CA and said, look, we want to be an academy. We've cut our teeth now in the industry. How about it? They came along, did an audit on us. We passed that audit and the rest is history. So that was 2015. So 9 years in, next year is our 10-year anniversary. So, you know, it's a growing industry. It took off. There's plenty of funds in the drone industry. And that's us. So what I want to go through now are the types of licenses and the regulations in the UK. So for everybody that owns a drone, even if it is the little small drones, I'll pass them around so you can have a feel of the weight of them, because I'll talk about these in a second. But we'll pass a big one around, that'll be a bit daft. Yeah. So you can just see those. These are super lightweight. Even if you've got these lightweight drones, you need to get a flyer ID. So it's a very easy 30-question ticket test. You could probably just open up the app in the bar and within 10 minutes, just by guessing, you would pass the test. So it's very easy, but all pilots must get that. All operators like BAM, Tarmac must register as an operator and label the drone. You'll see a sticker on the drone that's got our operator ID on it. But then in terms of qualifications, I put license there. They're not technically licenses like a private pilot's license. You get a qualification. There are two. Mark did the A2 certificate of competence. That's a 1-day course. But then there's a more in-depth one called the General Visual Line of Sight, which is 3 days. It allows you to do a bit more, and we'll talk about that in a second. If you're flying a drone for anything other than sport and recreational, you must have insurance. So a specific commercial insurance policy, £800,000 worth of public liability, and it must meet, even though we've left the EU, it must meet an EU regulation. So just going on about the regulations a bit more, the CAA are worried about uninvolved persons. They're not really worried about your profit margins and cost savings and things like that. They're protecting you walking down the street with your family and the dangers that drones can occur. They're not bothered whether you're doing a commercial flight or a recreational flight, because generally the risk is down to the weight of the drone hitting you or the speed it hits you at. So that's the premise they work on. In 2021, the rules changed. Just as Brexit hit, we had this European drone law, which meant we were mobile. We could go to France, Germany, fly anywhere we wanted. Brexit came the same time as this law was introduced, and the CAA went, well, you know, the British have influenced this law, so why don't we'll adopt the same regulations, but we'll put it in UK law. And that's in effect what we did. So the concepts of it was operation-centric, risk-based and performance-based. And the example I use to explain these is, if you fly that big beast there, it's called a Matrice 350, it's 9 kilograms. If you fly that, there's a prospective wind farm that's going up in the Highlands, no one's around, it drops out of the sky, nobody's at risk. But if you start flying that around the university campus or the city centre, then the risk, as you are well aware, has increased exponentially. If it falls out of the sky, it's likely to hit someone, it's likely to kill them with the weight of it as well. It's up to nine kilograms that. So if you're allowed to do that, because the risk has increased, then there's more effort involved. The pilots need to be trained to a higher degree and they need to be able to handle the drone when there are issues with the drone. So that's the basic premise, but I'll just go through it in a little bit more detail. So they introduced 3 categories. The open category, which they deem as low or no risk to third parties, people going about their own business. The specific category where the risk is a bit higher. And then we have a certified category, which is akin to, when I finish this brief, I go back to Yorkshire, I walk outside, there's an uncrewed drone, it picks me up and it takes me back to Yorkshire. That's the sort of level of risk we're talking about. Equivalent to manned aviation, you know, EasyJet. So the pilots are certified, qualified, etc. That, if there isn't a certified category in the UK as yet. So we're just going to look at the first 2, the open category and the specific category. So with the open category and specific categories, there's 3 main factors. The maximum weight of the drone is 25 kilograms. That is some beast, you know, that's a bag of cement, isn't it? 25 kilograms. You can imagine the damage it does. It would do if it hit you. That one there, as I said, is 9 kilograms. So you can see the difference in size. You've always got to be able to see your drone. So they call it VLOS, visual line of sight. So you've always got to keep it in sight. The little drones that are being handed out, even though the maximum is 500 meters, I dare say you won't see those beyond 100 meters. So you've got to keep it in visual line of sight at all times. The Matrice, you probably would see that. The EV, the fixed wing, you probably see that out to 500 meters. And you've got to fly no higher than 400 feet from the surface. There's a reason you go up to 400 feet and stay there is most crewed aviation will fly down to 500 feet unless they're taking off and landing. So as you can see, you're up to 400, they're down to 5, and you've got 100 foot safety buffer. Around airports, there are regulations that you can't fly within airport cylinders. So there's a zone, 2 or 2.5 nautical miles, and the approach lanes into the airfields as well. It's illegal to fly there unless you get permission. You are supposed to take, supposed to be visual line of sight with your drone at all times. If you want to go heads in, let's say there's a shot there that you really want to take, it's a cinematic shot, you want to go heads in, you're supposed to have somebody at the side of you. So this is probably what this guy was wishing he had in hindsight. So he's in London, he's got something the size of the Mini 4. And his observer could have told him, by the way, that the crane operator is now in the crane and he's swinging it round towards you. So move your drone, descend it, increase height. Hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it? There we go. So as I said to you before, the CAA, what they're worried about is the risk of injury to uninvolved people. So they have a duty of care, and there is within aviation a law that applies to everybody that says a person must not recklessly or negligently cause or permit an aircraft to endanger persons or property. Oh yeah, we teach how not to do that on the courses. So basically, the open category, I said low or no risk to third parties. Effectively, the risk is based on the weight of the drone and how close you can get to people. So in the open category, they divided it down into subcategories called A1, A2, and A3. So what they were saying is, if you've got a really lightweight drone, like the 2 we've just seen being handed around, then you can fly over people. And so you walking down the street, we'll come back to this when we talk about people, rogue operators around quarries, but they can fly over the top of people, not assemblies of people, but people. The A2, they're going to let the drones go a bit heavier, but they're now not going to let you fly over people's heads. They're going to give you criteria, distance limits, how close you can get to people. So we call that the near or close category. And then if you want to fly something really heavy, then they're going to say to you, right, let's get you away from congested areas, built up areas. Let's get you way out of the way. This is where you go to farmland, highlands, 150 meters away. And then you can fly all the way up to 25 kilograms. If it falls out of the sky, it doesn't matter if it's really heavy. Like I said to people with the wind farm analogy, it shouldn't land on you, therefore there shouldn't be any risk with that one. So just for those that are online, we're talking about little Neo, it's palm size, we're just handing that out. You've got the Mini 4 Pro and it's below 250 grams. That's important when we talk about regulations. The Mavic 3, a lot of your drone operators are using Mavic 3s and they weigh around the 900 gram mark. And as I said, the 350 is known. If you're on any specific projects, Ministry of Defence projects, then we're not a big fan of Chinese drones flying around their sites. So you've got the French options here, thermal camera on the left and survey grade around. And this is it's a newer version, it weighs a bit more, but effectively that's the one I was telling you about that I bought. And it sat in the box for 6 months. So very worrying when you first take that off because you shake it to start it. That is the start sequence. It's got a tilt switch. You tip it up and you run and throw it, and then you just hope it stays on your pre-programmed flight path and doesn't just bugger off in a different direction and you say goodbye to it. The vertical takeoff one, the wing shot on the right, I know a few operators have got this within the quarry sector. It goes up and then it tilts and goes forward because it's more efficient when it's got the lift from the wings as well in forward flight. So just going back to the flyer ID. So we've gone into the bar, you spent 10 minutes getting your flyer ID, you walk out of there, what can you do? Well, you can operate in the A1 over category and the A3 FAR. So what does that allow you to do? Well, the A1, it means that you can go out and buy a Neo or a Mini and you can fly that as long as it's in a legal area, not an airport, as I said, or a prison or anything like that. You could go and fly it outside now in the university grounds, as long as you're not flying over groups of people, and you can just fly it around. That's all you need. If it's sport and recreational, that is it. So, as I said, fly over people and in congested areas. So, people on social media love this drone. Roofing companies love it. There's no more scaffolding, no more ladders at the initial inspection stage. They just fire up these drones, have a quick look. They can prove to the client where they think the issue is. And then they may need the ladders and scaffolding after that. But so much better in terms of risk. The A3, you skip the A2 deliberately, but the A3 also means that we've done our 10 minutes in the bar, you've got your flyer ID, you can go out with the matrice or anything up to 25 kilograms, and you can fly that in an open area as long as, well, you can do commercial work with it as well. But you must be 150 meters away from a congested area. So our people in Norfolk, some companies were saying, well, we could do these pipeline inspections with that drone. And I said, well, that's all well and true, but you can't cross roads really. You can't go near any buildings. And if there are any people around, you must stay at least 50 meters away from those people. And there's also something called the 1-in-1 rule that traditionally most people do the mapping flights about 70, 80 meters. Whatever height you're at, you need to be the same distance away as well. So it's not that easy to fly that, but you could go and have fun with anything up to 25 kilograms. So the one in the middle is the A2. That's the one where I said you can fly near to people. You can't overfly people, and there's a 50-meter buffer, horizontal buffer from uninvolved people, and it's always horizontal. So if you get airborne and need to move 10 meters to the right, you've got to make sure you've got 50 meters clearance at all times. So that's quite difficult when you've got that horizontal distance to operate in congested areas. Now, this is a distance, a horizontal distance from uninvolved people. So in your quarry, you can get people involved by giving them a safety brief. getting them to agree that they have to fly around the drone. So an A2 does work in a quarry. It doesn't work for surveyors in town centres. You'd be really struggling to do anything valuable with that drone around this university campus. Because you imagine half a 100-metre sprint track or that in both directions. It's very difficult to do anything tangible. And you've got to follow the 1-in-1 rule as well. So if you wanted to get a shot at 70 metres, you're 70 metres away as well. So it can be quite difficult. Max weight for that one is 2 kilograms, and there are quite a few drones below the 2 kilogram weight limit in the industry. Most of them are. That's just a diagram saying the 1-in-1, but I think you get the whatever distance you are, you need to be at whatever height you're at, you need to be the same distance, 50 meters. So what if you do want to fly that Matrice 350 around this campus? Well, you can do it, but the risk level now has gone outside the open category, so you jump into the specific category, and you need to get the general visual line of sight certificate, that qualification, which many of you have got that have come through the 3-day course in Motherwell. Why do people go to that? Because the risk has increased. You can't fly a 25 kilogram drone in a congested area. Remember, you've got to be 150 meters away. So now I've got the qualification. I can fly that drone in this campus. The only criteria is when I take off and land, I've got to have a 30-meter safety buffer from uninvolved people. So we'd have to move all the students out, put cordon round us. But once I'm airborne, it's a 50-meter separation distance. People refer to it as a bubble around the drone. So if you go to 52 meters, you're almost guaranteed that when you fly around, you are going to have that 50-meter clearance from people. Now, just because you can fly over people doesn't mean to say you should, and your risk assessment method statement should do everything to try and avoid people, time of day, flight path, etc. If you don't need a heavy drone, use one that's a bit lighter. So, which is a better license? Well, the GDC gives you more freedom. Notwithstanding the A2, if you get people involved, then you could use that in a quarry environment as long as people around you are involved. Max 2 kilograms, so all the mainstream drones, the Mavics, the Mini. The Mavic, sorry, is the one to the right, the smaller one to the right of the big beast there. So, in terms of drone use in quarries then, one aspect that you may not have thought about, but thermal surveys. This one was Justin Collis from Heidelberg Hansons, and they're using that for their carbon targets for 2030 and 2015. They were doing some analysis. You can look at conveyor belts and bearings, hot in particular wheels and things like that. So it does show a difference. There's one of the dryers that you can see there, and they can do spot checks on the temperature. So what they were saying there was insulated end was 40 degrees, but the uninsulated end was 176. So it seems to be also, if you've got security on your quarries and you've got perimeter, thermal drone at night would do that, or in the day just use a colour sensor. The guys that use them for explosives, as we know, many of our customers use them for profiling. So on this particular photo, they use photogrammetry to analyse the particle size distribution on a blast. And then also they can create digital twins, look at the models there, see, check the accuracy of the design, and also by using drones, it removes the person as well. So it's much safer. The big one though is volumetrics. For your stockpiles, looking at a quarry 1 month to the next, what's been removed. The software now can tell you what the difference is. You know, there's always AI out there to do that. But then what sensor would you use? Because on that matrice, that's got a camera on it, which will take colour images, but you can put different payloads on there. You put thermal. I'll just start with option 2. So you've got the photogrammetry, so it takes loads of pictures, stitches them together, and you get your 3D model, amongst other things. We'll talk about the deliverables. But generally, they're quite cost effective because the Mavic 3 Enterprise that you guys are using with the correction service is about £3,500. You know, that's, you know, when you think back to my £800 a day I was charging plus travel or whatever, it doesn't take long to pull that back. And that's why we see a lot of drone operators bringing the drone service in-house. An example, Croxton Quarry there, it's 245,000 square meters. It normally takes about 30 minutes to set the drone up, and 15 minutes to set the mission. And it took 30 minutes to fly that. Imagine doing that in a traditional method. It would take so much longer, and you only get a spot where you put your theodolite down or whatever it might be. So it just, and the safety aspects of it. When I did the quarries, I think on a handful of occasions I was in the quarry and not outside on a nice, one of the grassed areas where it was nice, smooth landing for the drone. So, you have to do the full induction, whatever, just works outside. Everybody else put the control in for me. The LiDAR is where it shines a light beam and gets a return. So they use that, you don't get a colour picture from it, but they use that to get a model. And it's really good because it can penetrate vegetation. It doesn't go through leaves, but there's enough gaps in it, so you will get a true reading of where the ground is, because you can pick up the last return of the LiDAR, and then you can get a good model. So if it's an overgrown site, it's a new site or something like that, or one that you're going back to check, then you can use the LiDAR system on that one. So if you can shine a torch through it and you can see the bottom, then you'll get a return. If it's thick, dense blackberries, there are limitations to it, and you won't get the light beam through, then you're not going to get a return. But even with the photogrammetry, the software is good enough to take out anything that's above the actual ground level. There are ways of doing it. So Hillhead, I'm sure you've been to Hillhead Show perhaps, but it's a huge area, that 612,000 square kilometres. And with the LiDAR, admittedly, the LiDAR, because it shoots light beams, the overlap's not as much as photogrammetry, but it only took 40 minutes to do that entire quarry. So you imagine, again, doing that through traditional methods, how long that would take. So quite a considerable amount of time. So what are the deliverables that you get then? This is what your surveyors want from it. So you get your 3D point cloud, so you can manipulate that. So this happens to be a shopping centre. You get your surface models and your terrain models. You get your contours on it. Popular for the house builders. They've all invested it. 10 years ago they didn't, when I bought that drone, but now they're all using drones to do the cut and fill, the volumes, work out where all the planning, putting the houses on, getting the optimum amount of houses for the return. Multi-mosaic, so that's just like all the pictures stitched together. Great for health and safety, so you can put, when you go onto a site, have the big plan on the wall, that's where your fire evacuation area is. These are your safety lanes, etc., one-way systems, and what have you. So you don't need to employ somebody in an aircraft that has to get a nice bright blue sunny day so they can get a huge picture at high level. You can just stitch all the pictures together to make one picture. And those out there know about 3D textured mess. And then the really important one is the volumes. So you can dot round stockpile, you can classify what it is, you can put the cost associated with that classification, and it will give the value of the stockpile so the accountants know what's on site. So really useful. So that's the drone use in quarries. In terms of the Quinjack guidance then, there's some great guidance online. A lot of the mainstream quarries and the drone operators are involved in writing this guidance. We got asked to proof it as well. So there's great, some good guidance on their website. You can download those. And I think it was because the incidence of rogue drone flights over quarries was quite worrying. And I get it. It falls out of the sky, hits an operator, or somebody's doing a drone survey and hits the drone. Could be the matrice. I know some of the operators have got those. And what do you do about it? Well, there's one particular guy out there called DJ Audits. He goes to police stations. He will argue the law with police. They'll try and stop him using his drone. He knows the law inside out. The top one was at a quarry. There was a protest. It was at Woolly's quarry there. So a bit of a disturbance, not with him. So it got quite a few views, 44,000. This guy was really helpful. He's just a site security guy, very polite with him. No news with that one, only 25,000 views. This company director, this is not a quarry, but I had a go at him and was trying to fight with him. But look at the views there, 635,000 views. So the guidance from the Quinjack is really good because it says things like just be polite and courteous to them. You know, when we go back to the regulations about flying, if he's got the Mini 4 Pro, something that weighs less than 250 grams, then he can start that drone up and off he goes. And he can fly it around. This is one of his videos. Sadly, there's not a lot you can do about it. But look, he's advertising on his site. He's got Amazon advertising. Looking for, you know, to antagonize people. So yeah, follow the guidance. Yeah, it's not breaching the regulations at all. You just have to be courteous. And what you could say is just exercise caution because we have got drone surveys going on day in, day out on these quarries and blasting. So it may not be a good idea for you to fly your drone today, but leave the responsibility with that down. So what next? In an ideal world, your managing director would say, right, let's do a survey next week at this quarry, and I don't employ any pilots. I just press a button on my desk and off that drone goes, and it does it completely autonomous. So they've got this thing called drone in a box. So the technology is there today to do this, and basically it's got a weather station on top of it, so determine whether it's safe to fly. It opens the box, up it goes, and it flies and does the job that you ask it to do, whether it's mapping the quarry, videoing the blast, or whatever it may be. So as I said, the technology is there. The regulation isn't there yet, and there's a pathway to 2026. You may see and go, well, hang on a minute, I know people that are doing, or I've seen it online, people doing beyond visual line of sight flights. There are, but there's only 6, and they're all on a trial. When the trial's over, that's then stop. So the first pathway to be released is in 2026, where they'll allow people to fly beyond visual line of sight in what we call an atypical air environment. So on linear infrastructure, like railway lines, you've got to stay below 15 meters, 50 feet. So you're not at risk, because when I used to fly the Puma helicopters, our standard height was 50 feet to transit around the UK. So the plan is to introduce it just for those environments. So like I say, linear infrastructures, patrols around fence lines, perimeters, and things like that. So that's cool. There is something coming in called SORA, Standard Operating Risk Assessments. That's going to come in. The Europeans are starting to introduce it now, and basically they'll work out the ground risk and the air risk for certain environments. It's based on like the density of people around, and I dare say at some stage quarries may get a SORA rating, and then there will be a drone rating attached to that SORA, and they'll say, right, if you're flying in a quarry, it's got a SORA rating of 3, so you need a sail rating drone of X in order to do that. That's where we're going with that. There's a lot of work going on. It is a bit slow. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating, but at least we've got a pathway, and we know, you know, the CAA are really keen to do this, but in a safe manner. Right, I think covered everything. So, have we got any questions at all?
Just interested in the chap who turned up at St. Barnabas Quarry. You're saying that under the law, he doesn't need permission to fly over an active quarry. Is that the case?
Yeah, correct. Sadly, and some of his videos, he turns up to police stations and flies over police stations, and they try and stop him, but he knows the law and says, you know, I'm not breaking the law. And he's saying, well, which article am I breaking? So yeah, I mean, there are privacy regulations out there, but you know, if you're not seeing people's faces, and you know, if you're in the public area, it could be deemed as, well, it's expected that your face may be captured and put on social media. So
it makes me wonder about rival quarrying operators flying drones over each other's quarries.
Good to see anything commercially sensitive. If he flies over on a quarry,
yeah,
pictures on the commercially sensitive to that particular operator, and then post it online. Then what's the legal challenge there then?
I don't think he's got one. Do you remember Leeds United was sending a drone to rival teams and watching the training? Yeah, morally it's not good, is it? But legally.
You're interested in Gavin, is it?
No, it's all-
Legal ways we do.
There's no possibly statute though in Scotland, because they could use breach of the peace, could they not?
I think potentially, yeah. Yeah, that'd be a test for court, wouldn't it? Well, I think like anything commercially sensitive, you're quite, you want get your competitors to look control over it. If he's put it online, then is that breach of peace of that some kind of legal charge? I don't know.
It's actually knowing what they do with it, because if they are wanting to do that sort of commercial espionage, they're not going to put it online, are they? They're just going to look at the footage.
Yeah.
Keep it to themselves.
And you just sell it to the competitor company.
Yeah.
We actually had one turn up at one of our sites, just,
That was like, man, you see it?
and he rated the response he got from the member of staff online. He rated the facility condition, and then he rated the roof condition as well
Wow.
of the facility.
You can pick up any leaks for you. It's freebie.
And then, it was okay. He didn't get the reaction he was looking for, or so his post wasn't going to go viral or anything like that.
No, I think that DJ audits, he is infamous in the industry, but I think there is that Quinjack guidance. If people follow that, you will rapidly get bored of going to quarries, go elsewhere.
In terms of cost, so what is the cost for each drone you've got on the table then?
The Neo is £300. The Mavic, the bigger one, is £1,000. Like I said, the survey grade version of this that you guys have got is about £3,500, all plus VAT. That you're not going to get much change from 20,000, depending on the sensor. So the drone itself is about 10,000. That payload's 4. We put the LiDAR payload on or a thermal, they're 10,000 for the sensor itself. Each battery is £600. You need 2 to fly with it. So a DJI send you a case with 8 empty slots. So most people buy 8 batteries, 4 pairs each time. So even the batteries alone are quite dear. And you get 400 cycles out of the battery. So 4 cycles.
So I started as a surveyor with one person EDM, one ETO post, and that's 2 salaries, whereas that's just a salary and all that kit to do 100 times the work.
Yeah.
Productivity is, usually used a lot when I started.
When people put business cases in, it doesn't take long for them to, we get a lot of guys really keen to introduce drones, and the hierarchy just say, right, put a business case together, let's look at it, and they'll come to us and we can give some statistics from it that we've seen, real life statistics, and it's not like
Yeah. And also, yes, complete absence of slip strips and fogs. As a severe one about the quarry,
Yeah.
all the high chance at some point to your ankle, straight in the knee or something, whereas now it's much more safer.
although if you pick the battery box up when it's full, there's a chance you can do your back really heavy. But, but I mean, you guys are using that smaller one, you saw me set it up, and you guys that use it. It's 2 minutes, isn't it, to get it out of the box, power it on, wait for the satellites, and then you're off.
If you check any questions from the satellite venues, can you do that? Just in case of any break time chat.
Got every-
No questions online now.
No. So comprehensive,
Yeah.
you've answered all the questions.
Lovely.
Anything else for the room?
I've got a quick one.
Lisa?
Just about wind speed and stuff, is particular optimum conditions that are required for surveying from that?
Yeah, so there's limits on every drone.
Yeah.
And then, when the guys go through the course and when they write the operations manual, there's a technical spec in there. Most of them put stickers on the boxes to remind them of the wind speed limit. And they're supposed to get an anemometer out, check the wind speed. I mean, bodies can have their own weather effects as well, can't they? So it doesn't matter what the national forecast says. When they go through the course, they're told either the A2 or the GBC, check the weather conditions locally, get your anemometer out, temperature as well. And only flag it's safe. But it's about 12 meters per second for most of the survey grade drones, which is about 26 miles an hour. So I think people are surprised when they come through the training course and go, right, we're going out flying, and they'll say, what is this? And we'll go, yeah, it's within limits.
Mhm.
You know, it might be just within limits, but it gives them confidence that they will operate. Obviously, it gets windy with height as well, so you've got to bear that. You know, weather's covered in a lot of detail on the course, so it leads to most accidents.
Anything else? Other questions, Larry?
I'm around for dinner anyway, so
Yeah.
if you've got any questions.
So just on that weather point, is icing an issue for the keeping them in the air?
Yeah, there's no anti-icing on these, so, you know, when the temperatures go up between 0 and +5 degrees and there's moisture in the air, as the blades go around, they pick up moisture, it freezes on impact. And yeah, we've had a few people that have had icing. You just need to get the drone on the ground. You stop generating lift on the props, it just turns into a brick.